Do you know what I did
Hey,
wrong?
what?
Do you see how many seconds into the live stream we are?
Yeah. Oh boy.
I started the video, and then I hit the go live button, and then it gave a confirmation modal, and I didn't pay any attention to it. So it
Right.
was sitting there waiting for me to say actually go live.
Got it.
And I didn't notice that until there were about 10 seconds left in the video. So
Oops.
who cares?
I mean, we're
Not
still
any
getting
of our
started here.
fans. How
Oh,
are you
most
doing?
people just skip that anyway. I'm good. I'm
I really
good.
I should just cut the first 20 minutes of every episode and see who complains.
Are you? This is a tangent, but are you a podcast listener? Like, do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite podcast is this one called Pudding Time, but it's
Right.
like so sporadic that I
It's hard to
hesitate
get
call
into it.
myself a fan because I don't know what the schedule is. I feel
That's
like if
right.
I was a true fan, I would know what the schedule is.
Actually, I think you're on this week. Anyway,
I completely forgot that.
forgot about that until
I
you said
can't-
something too.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
Hey, Pudding Time is John's podcast.
That's
if
right.
anyone doesn't understand.
I was going to ask if you are a podcast listener because one of the first things they do on podcasts is run an ad, and I immediately hit that skip ahead button, and I wondered if
yep.
you did that too. Yeah,
Yep.
I feel like that's a real skill, trying to hit that button just the right number of times to not miss any content, but to definitely get past the ads.
But you know what I like about it is that the ads are like generally a consistent duration. So they're like it's like 30-second ads. So if you have a
Okay.
button that skips 30 seconds, you hit skip one ad, skip two ads, or like sometimes maybe they're a minute long.
Yeah.
At least like the good podcasts that I listen
Right.
to, it seems like they use like whatever. It's probably an ad service that's like filling those things in.
Yeah.
Um,
It seems like they could get maybe a little more impression on those ads if they made them 35 seconds.
yeah, totally. Yeah, it totally messes people.
Yeah.
Or just like make the whole show an ad. Would probably be like sprinkle in like cut it up so that it's like 10 seconds of the podcast and then a 30-second ad. 10 seconds of podcast, 30-second ad. We could totally start a marketing company. I feel like
Yeah.
that's what we should be doing.
Killing it.
This is like taking full advantage of I don't know,
Hey,
capitalism.
something's different behind you.
Is it? I'm standing.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's different.
You know, I was standing last time also. I think I was at least. I consciously am doing this because I know that my kneeling chair is very squeaky. So I try to avoid the kneeling chair.
Got it.
I did
Trying to-
almost. Hey, this is a good segue. I did almost kneel today
Okay.
because my ankle is hurty. I rolled it while I was on a run this morning.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. I have a race on Friday that I'm doing. That's why I can't do the podcast. And I was doing a little like tune-up run today, and I rolled my ankle on a hole on the trail. Anyways, so I was thinking maybe I want to be on. I want to take some weight off my feet. But I decided to be tough and deal with
Yeah.
it. Anyways, this has to do with peace, love, and meat actually. I was trying to remember. Do you know the acronym RICE? And have you heard that in
I
relation
think
to like
that RICE is a framework for evaluating opportunities and picking which one has the most impact.
I don't know anything about that RICE. In relation to physical activity and injury specifically, RICE is an acronym that they tell you like so that you can remember how to handle like musculoskeletal injuries, like slight injuries. And
Sorry to yell at my kid.
oh, okay. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to keep talking or not because you gave me the shh.
I know. I don't know why I did
I
that.
was like, me? Because I can keep going. Anyways, RICE is a way to remember what to do when you get a little injury. And the
I see.
R is rest, I is ice, C is compression, and E is elevation, like elevated above the rest of
Okay. Yeah.
Anyways, today I was trying to remember what the C stood for. I was like struggling. Is it like, I know there's cold involved. Is it I for ice or is it C for cold? I couldn't remember that C was compression, so I was looking it up. And what I learned is that the RICE acronym is no longer the cool thing.
Okay.
If people think that it is not actually what you're supposed to do necessarily with
Okay.
mild injuries like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now there are 3 new acronyms, which are peace, love, and meat, which I think is fantastic. So I don't remember what they stand for, but it's just my new motto.
All right. So RICE is a scoring model that helps you decide amongst competing ideas. Okay. So R is reach. Impact is the I. Confidence, and then effort.
Ah, those all seem like good things to measure.
Yep.
Have you used that model before?
I think Joe used to. Old PM at Artsy. She would occasionally throw some numbers in a spreadsheet and evaluate.
Throw some rice at you?
Yep.
Wow. I had not heard that.
Okay.
We both learned something.
Yep.
Tell me about your perfect lighthouse. Oh, this is a perfect lighthouse score, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So let's do this button. Share screen. Entire screen. This one. Share. Okay, don't do that. Command,
Hey, I like that app.
N. Yeah.
You should tell me about
Let's
that.
get this over here. Let's do a John.zone.
It's a good URL.
So when you
that's your URL shortener?
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
How did you get that?
Yeah. So look, it even does like a little. You see the little animation.
Yeah.
So it was not 100. I had to do some stuff to make it 100. But yeah, I got that one, and then I got this one to go to 100 too.
Wow.
Here, go here.
This is this a static site? This
Yeah,
one?
these are,
Or
yeah, these
is
are
it- how's
these
this
are
spelled?
both static sites.
They're both static.
Yep.
Cool.
But even with that, like it still is challenging to hit 100%
sure.
on all these things.
I mean, yeah, I think like you eventually reach that point of like diminishing returns where like to get from 95 to 96 to 97 or whatever, it's like piddly crap that takes a lot of effort.
yeah. Well, and
That's
I
awesome.
still do have a few things to do. These are probably a little hard to read, but for example, I have some images that don't have width and height attributes set. I guess the impact on the page is so small that it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I can still get to
It's like a
100%.
0.1 minus 0.1 or something.
Right. Oops, I want to stop
Almost.
sharing.
That's awesome.
that's
So
pretty fun.
I want to ask you more questions about that.
Oh, okay.
What are some of the things that you had to do
Yeah.
to reach
I'll
100?
try not to hog time, but it's
No, I
on
mean,
my.
You had the whole last episode, so it would only
What?
be fair for you to have this whole episode too.
Let's see. Shirt. Shirt is the URL shortener.
Is this? Did you build this?
Yeah.
Wait.
So-
this is the repo that turns into the website.
This is John.zone.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And it is totally cheating by calling it what you would think of as a URL shortener. It uses Apache and an htaccess file to just like have redirects built. So in this data YAML
Why is that
file,
cheating?
well, just like it's not like database driven or anything. It just like takes YAML, turns
Sure.
these into htaccess rules, and then spits out an htaccess file. And Apache is just so damn fast at doing these things that
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, this feels like the right way to do redirects, honestly. With the exception, the only thing missing being like any sorts of analytics that you would want
Sure.
on top of it.
Yep.
Like that's
However-
probably what you would get out of a URL shortener service that you used.
Apache's good at logging. So
Is
I
it?
haven't actually like read and ingested the logs, but I'm spitting
Yeah.
tons of log data on my Apache
Yeah.
server.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I've always wanted to do this, but I have never really thought of a good URL to buy to do this. But
When I
John
discovered that John.zone was available, I kind of felt like I had to
Yeah.
buy it. Yeah.
I love it.
So this is what I had to do. In a prior version of the site, it was like purple, like dark purple text on a black background, and that violated some accessibility rules about making the contrast ratio between your foreground and your background colors. So all these color changes, that's what that's about.
Accessibility changes.
Accessibility. But yeah, I just like forgot to put a lang on HTML and a couple metas.
Some SEO stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Is that all you had to do for the your website also, or were there more things?
Let's see. So yeah, lang again. Actually, no, it was even simpler.
It's even fewer things.
Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool. Did you name the shortener project SHRT so that people would mistakenly call it shart instead of short?
I would hope that they would say it more like shirt.
No, I'm going to call it shart. I will forever call it shart. That's very cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Got any other updates for me?
For you? No. You tell me about some stuff that you did this summer.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm going to actually start with an analog share, which is, I believe I shared this with you at the beginning of the summer, but I don't think I shared it on stream. So one of the things that I really enjoy doing is painting bike shoes.
Yes, I knew that.
And I shared this with you at the beginning of summer, that I had this design that I was going to do on my most recent pair of bike shoes, and I was going to make the entire shoe look like this design where it's got like kind of that Kubert effect in the middle.
Yes.
Like there's kind of a you'll notice I'm holding it off to the side, and I'll show you why in a second.
It kind of has like an optical illusion.
Yeah, it's a little bit optical illusion. Like there's some depth to it. I'm really excited about this design. And I spent the entire summer painting triangles, and I still haven't finished.
Oh my gosh!
I'm still not done. I have honestly spent I've probably spent at least 20 hours, maybe 30 hours painting these shoes so far. They're both about the same. They're both like, I'm like working on them kind of simultaneously.
Okay, I have an operational question here. Do you put something on them after painting that is going to like protect them?
Preserve it? Yes, so there's like it's actually right here.
Like a clear coat?
Yeah. Satin coat that I'll put on it. This is leather paint, which these shoes are certainly not leather because they're too cheap. But it seems to work.
Same effect. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, I've painted 2 other pairs of shoes, and both of them held up pretty well. The first one I didn't put the satin coat on, and it even held up pretty well.
Okay.
I had to throw that pair of shoes away though because my cat peed on them, and I actually multiple times, and I couldn't get rid of the stink. So that's when I bought these shoes. And the last pair that I had a nice I had like a sun design on one shoe and a moon design on the other, and some clear coat, and I've worn those like every day, every ride when it's warm out, and every indoor ride for the last year and a half, and they've held up pretty good. There's like scuffs, and there's places where the paint has been rubbed off, but I think a lot of people might look at that and say, well, that seems like you're putting in a lot of effort and you're not getting like a lifetime guarantee that it's going to look like that. And to me, it's more like I get to paint this pair of shoes again in a year and a half to 2 years, and like that's awesome.
Feature, not a bug.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, I am on. I have done 2 coats of all 3 colors in the Kubert things, green, orange, and white. I'm gonna do 1 more coat of each. The coats go quicker now, but like those first coats that I laid down were like an hour per side of shoe. It's just like so putty. And I'm old, and I can only do it. I've now reached a point where I wear contacts. I cannot look at something this close to me with contacts in. So I have to take them out and
Okay.
put my glasses on so that I can take my glasses off so that I can actually look at the shoe. So I only do them at night after I've taken my contacts out. And then the last thing I was gonna say is like one of the scariest parts to me was that I wanted to draw that design and have it be consistent and not have it look like, just jaggedy all over the place. So I made like this little template, which I thought was pretty fun. I don't know how to show it there. So just like all these little triangles, and then I poked holes in it where I would draw dots, and then I was like connecting them with a ruler. It was pretty.
So sort of like your guides. Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like to do like geometric art stuff like that.
Geometric on a flat surface or something is one thing. But doing that on something that's so challenging, like a shoe, it's...
Yeah. It was a pain in the butt. I mean, drawing the lines took a long time, I should say. That was part of it also. Anyways, that's my analog share. Someday I might quit my job and...
Make racing shoes?
Yeah, paint shoes for people.
Nice.
Beyond that, let me show you the other thing I did this summer. And speaking of racing, I'm going to share my screen. Entire screen. This one. Tunnels. Okay. I made an app this summer.
Nice.
Using Elixir and Phoenix. And this app, I built it because middle of the summer, the company that I work for had a retreat, and we went to the Dominican Republic. And one of my colleagues who also does triathlons kind of reached out to me, a lot earlier, and was like, "Hey, let's put on a triathlon while we're there," because we had a 50-meter lap pool for everyone to swim in. And then there was like a room full of exercise bikes, and then a little track that we could have them run on. So
if the facilities were there, why not do it? Kind of a thought.
Yeah. Exactly. And my coworker Nicholas, he did so much of the planning up ahead of time and organization, and I just got really excited about the idea of like, how are we logistically going to time this? Because everyone wants to know who wins. So I looked into some services to
like administer.
Yeah, to basically like just pay somebody to time this race. I didn't want to do anything with like equipment. I just wanted to be like basically a glorified stopwatch, but on my phone. And so that's what I built because I didn't find anything that I liked. There were things out there, but they weren't exactly what I wanted. I got some things that I am confused about in terms of sharing. Can you see? You can see the Track the Kamundaflon button right now, right?
Well, something is wrong because I see Microsoft Edge, but you're on Mac OS, so I'm a little confused.
But you can see the window.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. Okay, then I'm in the right place. Okay, so I'm going to show you this app. I shared with you the credentials in the URL if anyone wants to play along. The URL is ready-set-go.gigalixirapp.com. Gigalixir app is spelled Gigalixir app.com. While doing this, I learned that there is a service named Gigalixir, which is basically like a platform as a service type of thing for hosting Elixir Phoenix apps. So I was trying to figure out, like, am I going to host this thing on Heroku, or like do they support it? This is the option that I found that was most similar and had a free tier for me to use. So that's where this is running.
Okay.
I will show you the app first. So if I go to Track the Kamundaflon, this is actually the results of the race that we had, and all these people are European, and they're probably going to be mad at me for sharing all this private information.
Is this GDPR compliant?
It is not. No, don't
awkward.
Don't tell anyone. The good news is nobody watches this stream, so nobody cares. Yeah, so like you can see like this. I had like numbers here for everybody. That's like an athlete number, just so that I knew when they.
Athlete number.
Logistically, what I ended up doing is I have the ability to. Gosh, I'm like going all over the place.
You're fine.
I had myself stationed at the start of the swim, and the end of the swim, and then I had another friend stationed at the bike room, and then I had another friend stationed at the finish line. And all these things were like near each other, but like not in the exact same
Not in the
spot.
same room. Yeah.
So the way it worked was I wanted to be able on my phone to hit a button that said this athlete started. So as they were getting in the pool, they'd say my athlete number is 17, and I would say okay 17, count you down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then they would go, and I would hit the start button for them, and then 15 seconds later the next athlete would go in the swim because we could only the way that there were limitations to the number of people that we could have going at one time, which the
This is
limitations
the idea
were,
of waves.
Yes, the idea of waves, and the limitation was the number of bikes that we had.
Got it.
So
That was your
we
like-
had 30 people who wanted to compete, but only 8 bikes.
Right.
So we released them in waves so that there were no more than 8 people competing.
Makes sense.
And yeah, so I would hit the start button on someone. They would start to swim. The next athlete would get in the pool. I would hit the start button on that next athlete, etc. And after I had released everyone into the swim, I was there so that I could hit another button to say, hey, they're done with the swim. Now they're heading over to the bike. And so I would do that. And then my friend in the bike room would basically like clean off the bikes after people use them because they got sweaty and gross, and reset the mileage on them. And then these people would enter the room, they would start biking, they would reach their finish line, and then she would hit the button that said they're done with the bike. And then they would go on a run around this little loop, and when they finished that up, they would cross the finish line, and then my other friend Maria would hit the button that said they're finished. And so because
So did I hear right that there's 3 events? 3
yes,
segments?
so there's
However you say it?
there's a swim, there's a bike, and there's a run, and then all of that gets added up to your cumulative, your total time. There's also, when you do a triathlon, like an official one where they have like real timing, they will also time your transition time separately, which is basically like you enter this big sectioned off area after your swim where your bike is sitting. And so while you're in that area, you're like taking your swim stuff off, you're getting your bike stuff on, you're getting your bike, and then you go out on the bike course. They'll time that separately than the bike or the run. But I didn't really care that much. I mostly wanted to, it just was too much to do that. And we didn't really have a transition area anyways. It was like running from one thing to the next.
So there's just 3 people administering this.
Yes,
triathlon.
3 people administering and in different places. So
Yeah.
that was kind of critical that each of us would be able to see the updates from the other person. So see that Nicholas, for example, was on the run, so that when they hit the finish, like they would know that was the right person that was finishing or whatever.
Makes sense.
Okay, so this is what the results look like, and what I can do is I'm actually going to go to, I'm going to click here, manage events, and you see I've got this Kamundathlon, but I also added this demo event.
Nice.
And I'm going to go to track on that one. And this is an event that hasn't started, but I set it up so that it has like a bunch of athletes in it. So 5 athletes, some in wave 1, some in wave 2. That's really not that important, it turns out. But it was useful for me to organize them into smaller sets of people so that I could see which ones I had to release at this time. Okay, so the cool thing is, or the way that this works is when I start the race, it'd be like, okay, Pancake, ready, set, go. And I'd hit this advance button, and now this timer would start ticking for them. So you can see like the swim is ticking, the overall time is ticking. What I love about this is that another person, I'm going to open this in an incognito window,
I'm seeing
can
it on
just
my
like
screen
come in
too.
here and track it if they want. If they wanted to, they could watch and see how everyone is doing.
Yeah.
And so for me, as the starter, I'd be like, okay, now Bubbles, you go. And then I'd wait another 15 seconds and I'd start Giggles. Oh, somebody started something. Noodles
It was me.
started out of their wave. Damn it, Noodles. Doesn't matter. It turns out it doesn't matter. because now I see that these 3 athletes have started. And then at some point, like Pancake would finish the swim, and I'd hit advance, and now they would be on the bike. That swim time is officially set in stone. And I would bounce back to this view if there was somebody watching along, they could see like where everyone was on the course. This worked out amazingly well for us to be like to just know where everyone was. So like the person in the bike room could see, there's still athletes swimming, or now this person has actually just finished the swim, so they're on their way here.
That's
which
cool.
was really cool. I hadn't really considered how effective that would be for overall just like visibility into the current state of the course.
Yeah.
Or
Nice.
current state of the race. Whoops. I don't know why I can't switch back to this window, but let's. So it looks like Biscuit's just finished. You advanced Biscuits all the way through. But you're such a dick, so I'm going to actually back
Oh,
this up.
look at that.
I have I like all I was trying to think about this the entire time building this thing was like, how am I going to screw up?
Right.
And how am I going to fix it
What's
when
my recovery?
yeah. So I added this little oops button, and then I made it so that you actually have to like confirm, because I figured there's no way I'm not going to accidentally hit that button.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to see with this app? Does it all make sense?
Can we advance
so then as we
everybody
finish
to-
it? Yeah, and let's say this person does better, and finishes like in 151, and then this person at 220 finishes. Oops.
I don't think anybody can catch Biscuits.
But Noodles can catch Pancake. Oops, if I hit the button enough times. Yeah, so it's sorted in terms of like sorted in terms
we
of
gotta get
where you are
Giggles
in the
here.
race, and then once everyone's finished, it's sorted in terms of nice Giggles, hell of a race, and then it's sorted to overall time. So like you could go to the results here. Now this is a finished race, and you could just see the order in which everyone finished.
Yep.
Everyone loved it. One of the things that I was worried about with it was that the internet. I didn't know how good the internet would be because this thing is like connected. So all of this is communicating over WebSockets. Through Phoenix has this concept of it's called Live View, which is like this nice wrapper around WebSockets. So you can create like controllers and views that are a live view basically, which make it really easy to just like update automatically through the underlying WebSocket. But I didn't know how the internet was going to be, so we had a person who visited ahead of time who was like planning the retreat.
Oh,
and
okay.
I kept like asking her like, how's the internet?
Can you run a speed test for me?
Yeah. I need you to stand in this exact spot because this is where Maria's going to be standing. The internet was good. Coverage was good. The only thing was there was one spot where we originally had the finish line set up where I wasn't getting a great signal. And Nicholas wanted to move the finish line anyways. So I was like, yes, let's move it because this doesn't work for me. But yeah, like without a hitch, totally flawless. I can't believe how well it went.
Awesome.
Considering you want to know how many unit tests I wrote for this thing?
You didn't write any tests.
I didn't write any tests. I tested the crap out of it in my browser.
Right.
Like doing the thing that I was kind of doing on the screen here, just like,
Yeah.
why doesn't it go back? Oh yeah. Just like hitting buttons and then checking another browser window to see. The other thing I guess I'll say here is you kind of notice this a little bit. There's like this these admin screens. So I have manage events, manage athletes. Like, oh, that's more PI stuff that I just accidentally showed. Manage events, all this stuff, and like I can edit events, give it a start time and end time. That ended up being useless.
What did you do to make it so that like the demo event can still be tracked, but the Kamundathon can't be tracked? There's some kind of like bookkeeping where you like finished the thing.
You know what I did with it? I said that the start and end time were useless. I lied. The end time is how I do that. So if I have an end time on it, I made it so that you can't actually edit it.
Makes sense.
Like you can't move any athletes on it.
Yep.
But yeah, we can, once we get into code, we can kind of, if we remember, we can kind of take a look at some of that like authentication stuff to identify users and then see what they have permissions to do and don't.
The care and attention that you paid to this is impressive for just like
Thank
a
you.
fun thing, whatever.
Yes.
But the fact that you didn't change the icon in the upper left-hand corner.
The Phoenix icon. You know what else I didn't change? I did not
What?
change the
And, like-
favicon.
Oh,
Which
okay.
you can't actually see the favicon right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I guess I can't.
You know what, though, John?
Hmm.
I'll show you a little bit of something now. I did keep track of literally everything that I did and learned along the way, which was like,
Nice.
look at this, like 400 lines of learning stuff along the way and keeping notes, making notes to
Nice.
myself.
Mhm.
And like preserving, you know, different commands and things that I just needed to make sure that I kept track of.
Mhm.
All these different ways to start things up. If eventually my plan was to turn this into like blog posts and videos
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that
uh-huh.
stuff, and so far all it is this.
Got it.
But here's what I wanted to show you. Here's my to-do list. This is everything that I accomplished ahead of time. This is my backlog. And then some post-race things
Oh,
that I could take
boy.
care of. Lock athlete actions when event is complete.
Nice.
This number one thing that never made it high enough on
It
the
wasn't
backlog.
above the waterline.
It was not above the waterline, no. So, you know, it's important. But same thing with CI deployment. I was deploying this thing manually to Gig Elixir, which this Gig Elixir
Oh,
app
okay. It's
has
got
a-
remotes. So this is kind of
Yes.
like when you're pushing to Heroku to deploy. Got it.
Yeah, totally. Yes, exactly.
Isn't that
So,
such a nice developer experience? I mean,
it is.
Of course,
So it's
CI
like git
deployment
push.
is sweet too, but like this is pretty sweet.
This ships it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the amount of friction to do that is like
Yeah.
zero. So,
Right.
again, that's why this one just like kept sinking and sinking and sinking.
Yeah. You worked on this by yourself.
I did work on this by myself, yes.
Having seen it, did anybody like express any interest? I mean, I would think your co-organizers or maybe some of the athletes would be like, "Hey, dude, this is pretty sweet. Can I see the code, or can you talk to me about how you made it?"
Yeah, I mean,
or-
I definitely I shared the code with a lot of people asked about it, and I talked about it and shared it with some of the other people. No one has expressed interest in like using it for something else, but I do think
it.
that this is a reasonable thing that if I wanted to, I could totally monetize this and just be like, hey, you want to track this? Like if you're going to
Yeah.
have less than 8 athletes, do it for free. If you're
Yeah.
going to have more than 8 athletes, pay me $10 per race.
and
I
they're
think
probably
that's pretty easy.
hurting
Would
for
be
some
pretty easy to
software
do.
that's not insane in the race
Yeah,
world.
exactly.
I would
Exactly.
imagine. I don't
Yep.
know.
But again, that's like, you know, what do I care about monetizing things that I dick
Yeah.
around with? Like zero.
Trying to paint some shoes over there. I get
I'm
it.
trying to paint some shoes. Okay, so do you want to see the code? Is that cool?
Yeah, can I ask a couple more questions?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Please.
So my guess is that this is backed by Postgres.
That is correct.
And so at this hosting company, maybe you pay for some kind of like web process that's actually serving these requests, and maybe you pay to have a database, and maybe there's like other add-ons you could get into if you needed it, but basically you just have like Postgres, like a Postgres kind of machine, whatever their abstraction is for that, and then a web process. Do you have like background jobs or anything like in that realm?
I'm pulling up the
Nice.
the console. Let's see. So I have this little dashboard that shows me the usage of it. What else do I have? Like the size is basically like how much memory. Repping keys left and right. Fuck. So let me do that off screen.
Oh, Steve. Oops.
Oh, there's a password there. That's going to be changed.
That's the great
yeah.
thing about GigaHost is that you can easily roll your database credentials.
It's also the great thing about having no viewers. So yeah, there is a database there that is like configured. It's like whatever the free tier is at, so it's like very basic, very small. Let me see. And then there are logs in there. So I can see. I think this is safe. I can see like my queries to the database.
There's giggles.
There's giggles. And yeah, like
Did you mess around in here much?
response. I did not know. But what I was gonna say here is like, this might look kind of familiar, or like it is everything that I experienced when working with Elixir Phoenix was that there were so many similarities conceptually to Rails.
Okay.
And so, kind of this Ecto would be kind of like the equivalent of like active record, I think.
Okay.
So like kind of that ORM layer. Yeah, what else can I say about that? So for me, there were I'm certainly not as strong a Rails developer as you are, but
there was something
at
like
least became functional at it when I
there was
at
something
RT.
that like helped you get up to speed because you had
Yeah.
seen some of these ideas. You
It was
could
all
like
kind of
connect.
familiar.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's cool.
The difference is in the language. So like,
Sure.
Elixir does not really look like Ruby.
Yeah.
And in fact, this is, if I look at any one of these things, here's a function, get user by email and password, has these ability to like place these type of guard clauses on things, and the syntax is some similarities, definitely similarities in terms of like people don't always use parentheses, and there's like, I don't know, times when they do and times when they don't. Sometimes my editor just formats it so that they always do. But it was the language itself was different, and I had kind of messed around a little bit ahead of time with Elixir, and
So did you
use
do
the like exorcism? There's like that exorcism app where it's like you work through a bunch of exercises one at a time to learn a language. I worked through probably like 30 of those before I started building this app.
Wow. Nice.
So I like had kind of learned to understand the language a little bit. You were gonna ask.
I guess I had assumed when we started talking about this, I was like, oh, he will soon talk about how he used this to just boot like some kind of React app, but maybe that's not right at all.
No, it's not. I definitely, if I look back at my notes, like that was a very early on decision was, I wanted to set up a new Phoenix and React app. And then I kind of got to a point, I can't find it. At some point I got to the point where I was like, wait, I don't need React at all. Like all I need is, if I look at, let's take a look at, so I have this, let's see, where can under Ready, Set, Go Web. Phoenix kind of breaks it down. So you have Ready, Set, Go that kind of has like data models and things like that. They're kind of the core of the project, but then the web project is where all of the controllers live. And then this live folder is like live controllers, basically. So these controllers are like classic MVC type of controllers. So each one of these is like, the ones that are here are for those forms that I had there for editing, for the kind of administration.
Could I see
stuff.
the one for, I think it's Event, is that the name of the model?
Yeah. Yes. So events. So I have an event controller,
Okay.
which has like an index.
Okay, so this maps
action,
to, yep.
New, create. Yep, totally maps to Rails, right?
Excellent.
Show, edit, etc. And so if we look at like edit, edits, edit basically if you pass in an ID, it goes to the database to get the event with that ID, and then it changes the event based on basically like the. No, actually, I don't know exactly. It creates a change set because the change set is how it tracks the changes. This is the display of the edit, not the actual like post. This is not like posting back to the forum with the changes.
Oh, because what if you have? What if you've like submitted the form and there's errors or something? We're gonna like hang on to the
yes,
change set
yep.
or something.
Exactly. So like any errors will show up in the right place. We can do any kind of that stuff. So then this update is the post back with the changes themselves. And again, we get the event, and then we call update event, which is a function that I didn't write. That just there's so much happening. Ecto, yep. There's so much happening. Phoenix has a ton of generators that basically, like, if I do like phx, let me see if it's here, gen auth. This command mix phx.gen.auth accounts users that configured all of the user authentication. Like that's literally what I did, and suddenly I had the ability to authenticate users and log in and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And then it also will do like let's see what other mixed so gen HTML. This generated it scaffolded the HTML pages and controllers for within my race space namespace the athlete, which was based on an athlete's table, which had each one of these different properties, which have all of their data types defined. And so running this scaffolded, so imagine this was an event instead of the athlete, would have scaffolded like the event controller, all of the stuff that was in here, and the events HTML, which eventually like kind of imports these basically, or like directs to each of these different templates, and each one of these is like this Heeks is the weirdest name, but the Heeks templating language is like, you know, every other templating language. Like it has different ways of rendering things on the screen, and then this event form has like all of these different fields in it, and all these fields are generated for me because in this command down here I told it what the properties were on the object and what the data types were, and it just generated all this crap for me, and I didn't do any of it. Honestly, like a fantastic experience. It was the most difficult part of the experience was knowing what to do when, and definitely knowing, like, I had a lot of struggles trying to figure out, like we were talking about with React. I struggled to figure out, do I need a React app? Do I just need like a live controller or a live view? Or do I need something different that hooks into WebSockets? Like there's, you know, some pub sub stuff. And figuring out what to use when was difficult and challenging.
Got it.
But
maybe to be expected. You're new to the ecosystem. You're like kind of piecing things together. Yeah. Did you write any JavaScript?
There's so little JavaScript written. So initially I did have this like app.jsx hooked up to do something, but I didn't really know what. It was basically just dumping text. But at the very, very end, it got to a point where it actually had something useful, which is like this is all like stuff that was generated for me. I didn't do this. This right here, this timer hook, is basically to make it tick. So like,
to update all the display timers.
Yep. So if I am sorry, let's go back here. If I move this guy back. Oh, because they moved to the bottom. Yeah, so just the fact that these are ticking. That's literally the only JavaScript that I wrote.
Wow.
And
because you weren't wanting to wait, like, as opposed to a WebSocket use case where like you're doing a chat app and one person types a message and then that triggers the update on the other person's screen. You just wanted every tick of a timer to cause a re-render.
Yes, I wanted it to update the screen. I didn't want it to cause a re-render from the perspective of like, from the perspective of like with a live view app, the state is all on the server. And so if you're going to re-render, like you're pushing it from the server to the client to say, hey, redraw with this new time. And that is something that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have to like, and I just didn't know. It didn't seem to me like that would be the right thing to do if I might have 300 people watching and 30 athletes on each screen. I didn't want to have to push out 900 updates every second.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It. So it's not like the server, it's not like you have this JavaScript code that's like hitting the server like, hey, how long has athlete A been swimming? You're
Right.
just like, I'm just going to just assume that we're still swimming because I haven't
I'm just going to
moved on
subtract,
to a
or I'm
different
just going to
state.
add a second.
I'm just going to add a second.
Yep. Yeah.
That makes a lot
So
more
there's an
sense.
interval that I set, and initially, it's
Sure.
when it mounts, it goes and grabs to see like the last time the server pushed out, what did it tell me that you were at for your duration. But then on the client, every second it'll basically just like do some math to figure out what the next second is, and then on 44 update the duration the element on the screen with that new duration, and then run it again in the next second. And the way that this gets connected to something is through this phx-hook attribute that I have on this span. So like it's styled. Everything is using Tailwind for styling. Like that just is just out of the box through Phoenix, which was great. It was my first time actually building something with Tailwind.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I found it pleasurable. But yeah, so like data duration that's basically what ends up here.
I
with
see. Sure.
That's the only communication between the server and the client for what the duration is, and then PHX hook tells it to, because this is these hooks. I don't know how. Oh yeah, here in live socket, all of the hooks that I defined above get injected whatever into this relationship between clients and servers. So that when there is a PHX hook equals timer, it knows that it's going to, whatever this contract gets executed at the right time. So like when it mounts the UI, it'll run this, and then when it just removes it from the UI, it will clear the interval, like basically clean up after itself.
So hooks is an object that has a timer key.
Yep.
That has a mounted function and a destroyed function. So assuming there's something in this framework that like establishes this contract, like if you give me an object that has these functions, then I'll call them.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it seems awesome. Were you scared to write normal, regular old JavaScript, or did you love it?
Well, I'll be honest, John. I don't actually know that I wrote very much of this, and that's another
Well, you
thing
had to
that I
do all
wanted
that
to
like
mention.
second stuff, didn't? Oh, did you use ChatGPT?
I GitHub Copiloted
GitHub
like the
Copilot.
majority of this app. Like, I bet somewhere. Can I do a find in here? No, it's over on there. I want to find within this chat window. Ugh, dumb. But yeah, I mean, like honestly, I'll see if I can find the start of a conversation. I mean, here's like stupid stuff, right? Like, how do I comment out lines on a Heeks file? Dummy. Somebody's an idiot. My database is messed up. How do I delete and recreate it with Ecto? What's the command to roll back a migration? How many times did I ask that question? Probably like 17. I don't know. All right, maybe I went too far. Here's some session stuff that I was trying to work through. This live view should be visible to both authenticated and anonymous users. How can I capture the current user and pass it as an assign when they are authenticated? An assign is basically the state bag that you pass things from the server to the client through.
Got it.
But pass nil when they are not. And then it gave me some code, and this is so some of you and I have talked about Elixir in general. Like, there are some things that I love about Elixir that I think that you don't like, but like I love the ability to pipe things from basically the results of this right here these lines right here. This is a tuple that might not be the right word. That has an OK. What does it call them?
Key?
It's not a key. It's like a token might not be the right word. In Rails, there's a way that like I
Symbol?
was so confused about. Yeah, symbol. I forget what Elixir calls them, but it's basically the same concept as a symbol. So it's like it really is the string OK, but it's like a canonical string OK.
They're not going to allocate memory twice for that OK token.
Yes. Thank you for being way smarter than me. So this is a tool that just like has like OK for the first thing, and then for the second thing we call assign with the socket, and then for the event ID we pass the ID, and then we pass the results of that to assign again, so that event gets chained onto it. Pass that to assign again, so that confirm rollback gets chained to it, and then assign again, so that current user gets. I love this stuff. I like this is so nice to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I really, really, really like about this that I know that you don't like is if I look at my components that I ended up defining. Core components, layouts, athlete status component. This is where I did a lot of the. Phoenix does have the concept of components, like live view components for a live view app, or for a traditional like HTML controller or HTML app that's like fully server based. Components for that too. Basically, like you would do in a React app, where like it's really nice to be able to break things down into components that are displayed on the screen. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. So I basically ended up with this one file that has all of my components for rendering each of these little statuses right here, because like this runner, for example, right now he is in the state of he's actively running, but there's also a state where you haven't started running, and there's a state where you've finished running. So there's like kind of 3 different states for this particular little display. All of that logic was handled inside of my athlete status component, and this is where, like, if I look at each of these bike durations, for example, I have all these guards on it where it's like, when not is nil T1 time and is nil, then this is basically the method that's going to get executed, or the component that's going to get executed. But if is nil T1 time or not is nil, whatever, there's a difference between these. I don't know what it is. Oh, is nil to T2 time versus not is nil T2 time. T1 time and T2 time are in reference to transition 1 and transition 2, which is how it's dumb triathlon details. It doesn't matter. Basically, T1 time is like, when did you finish the swim, and T2 time is when did you finish the bike.
Got it.
Anyways, I have all this overloading of the function, basically. Like, this bike duration component is in here 3 times, and whichever one matches, that's the one that it's going to render. You said that you hate that kind of stuff, but I love that stuff.
You are correct. I do not like this.
I love it. It's just like eliminates like ifs that I have to write all over the place.
I would argue that it spreads your ifs.
No time.
Okay.
No. Yeah, okay. It spreads
because
your
now
ifs.
I have to evaluate not an if else, like it's just changing where the conditional's happening.
Yeah.
And I would argue that it's more confusing because now I gotta compare the bodies of these functions and pick out what's different. And so maybe there are some overloads where it's very clear, but I just think that it is, like any programming language, it is possible to write code that makes it a little hard to see like what's the signal and what's the noise.
Agreed. We can still be friends.
We can still be friends.
What else do I want to show you? I've totally rambled. But I know I had a few more things written down. IEX is an interactive
so like
Elixir
IRB
terminal. It's like IRB. Yep. And so this was another thing that I think if I had not experienced Rails, I would have been really confused about. But just as in the thing that has always absolutely blown my mind about Rails development or Ruby development is no Rails development is the fact that like people will connect a Rails console against the live production environment.
Yeah.
Like you can just do that. You can just like spin it up, point it at your live environment, and run commands against your database. And that's
All that-
like terrifying to me.
All that application code is right there at your disposal.
But I did find that I needed to do this in my Gig Elixir deployed environment.
Gig Elixir probably has some command that will open a console and connect to your running instance.
Yep, exactly. So let's see if we can find it. Yeah, Gig Elixir PS Remote Console. We just like I'm not gonna do it right now because I'll probably expose some secrets again.
So if you were it's like for example, maybe you were testing something and you wanted to get that little running guy in those 3 states to see them, you could potentially have opened a console and faffed with the data to arrange it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Which was really powerful. And also, you know, the other thing that's nice about an interactive explorer is just being able to, especially at the very, very beginning, not knowing how to write any of this code, being able to like spin up a console locally and just like see like what is my race space dot events, like what even does it have.
Do you have the same kind of niceties in terms of like the associations has many belongs to, those kinds of things?
Yeah, let's take a look at some of those model definitions if I remember how to get there. It might take me a little bit. All events. So I think if I go to definition, can I go to definition on event here? Yeah. So this is the events model, or what do they call it? A schema? They call it a schema. Schema events has these fields, has many athletes, has timestamps.
Nice.
All extremely Railsy to me.
So wait, is this like this? This is not a migration. This is like
not a
the
migration.
result of having run the migration command.
Yep, exactly. So this is basically.
Hey,
So
look,
there are
change
migrations
set method.
files. So let's see if we can find a migration.
Oh, okay.
Create events. So this is the actual migration, which
Nice.
creates the table with these different columns. And again, the way that this happened was I would have done like
that-
mix phx dot gen dot. This one might have been like I forget. There's one for doing just the model, without any sort of UI
Yeah.
associated with it. But there's something for that.
So,
and
like
then
in
I would have defined all the properties here, and then this would have gotten generated for me, and honestly,
And
this would have been
that.
like modified or created for me.
So as opposed to the schema living in its own file with all the schema things that you would see in Rails, just every single table in a Rails app is in one file. That schema information is embedded inside of the model file.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, there are
So
definitely pros and
inside of
cons
this
there.
race space.
Because like when I'm working with a Mongoid model, it's more like this, where you can see the actual fields in Mongo land. And then when I go to a Postgres, an active record model in Rails, I'm like, now I got to go to the schema to go see, what is the type of this data, or like whatever the thing I'm looking for is. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Excuse me. Atom is what it calls the symbol. I see that right here.
Okay.
You mentioned the change set function. This is like a way to I don't totally remember, but I think this like one of the things that you could do with this is like filter out certain properties from being updated. Like if
This
there
looks
was
like an
something you
allow
didn't
list.
want a user,
Yeah.
an allow list, and then also validation. Like what are all the fields that it should validate?
What? That's interesting. Huh. So it couples allow list and validations. I suppose change
They're
set is only called in the controller.
They're coupled in the sense that they both exist right here, but like they don't have to be synchronized. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep.
Like we don't have to update the end. Or we can We don't have to validate end time. We can just like update it.
Yep. Yep.
If that makes sense. All in all,
Super interesting.
I give it a 10 out of 10. Like my experience with this was like 10 out of 10. I loved it. I loved building with it. I felt like I was so able to move quickly and build things
Productive,
quickly.
right?
And I cannot imagine if I had tried to do this in. I mean, I had a limited amount of time. I had a deadline. Like I had a specific race date that I wanted to get it done for, and I probably worked like pretty heavily on it for like a month and a half, something like that. A couple hours a night or something like that, maybe 4 or 5 nights a week. I can't imagine if I tried to spin up a React app or something, I totally would have gotten stuck on something. Just like configuring stupid stuff, you
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
trying to get things to play nicely together, like whatever the hot new module loader thing is, whatever. This like the opinionation was fantastic, and like they've made such, in my opinion, good decisions, and I love it.
Awesome.
I would love to build something with it again.
That's pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, for sure.
And
We're
I had to
over
say,
now.
it looks super professional. Like, it looks really nice. Excellent
Thank
work.
you. Thank you. I don't know. Like, what do you think that I should like put effort into trying to like actually productize it and monetize it? I don't really know.
All I can tell you is I have tried some things like that before, and what I discovered was I'm not actually interested in the business side of things, and then I just like don't follow through, and I don't do the things that I would need to do to get users.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of passive income, but at what cost?
Yeah.
I'm just trying
Cool.
to paint shoes over here.
Thank you for showing me that. It looks great.
Yeah, I had a really fun time. I was very rambly and kind of all over the place. So when people watch this, maybe they have questions or like things that they want me to call out. It's all open source, so I don't think I shared that. But
We can always put it in the show notes.
GitHub.com/bpoints, and like there's repositories there, and you'll find it. John, I think we're done, right?
We're done. We did an episode of the show.
All right. Hey, take care.
Take care. I love you too.
I love you.
Love you too. Bye.
I love you.